Welcome back to Real Talk with Haley and I. We're excited to be doing these conversations. We had a good talk last week and had some good comments. Today, we were talking about something that is kind of just in our daily conversation. We're bringing conversations to those we're in business with around culture. And Haley and I were talking about culture, and then we were talking about how it relates to productivity and just our experiences with other, large, small, new experienced teams, and kind of what that means, what culture means to them, and like really what we should be thinking about, I think, as leaders when it comes to culture, because that's kind of it's just a real common word, don't you think, Haley? Like we keep hearing the word culture. And so what does culture really mean? And what is the most important thing when you as a leader are trying to develop a culture? I think it's just an interesting conversation.
Yes, I think that culture can either drive people to you or away from you, away from your business, really from your team, and any business too, not just within real estate, but with outside of real estate too. Culture is very important. And if you are a team and you're looking to recruit people based on your culture, I think a lot of the things that you need to be asking yourself, first of all, is to evaluate the current culture that you have.
Yeah.
Because, and Cari and I were talking about this yesterday, a lot of people, I think naturally we just think like, oh, a culture of growth, a culture of positive mindset, a culture of connection and inclusiveness. And those things are all great. But culture, there's also a lot of negative things that could happen in culture that we don't shed any light on. And I want to also point out that it's also about what are you doing in your daily activities and your daily practice and your habits within your business that are actually leading toward productivity? Because in real estate, we have to remember that our team, we're in a business of selling. And if you're not doing that, and if your culture doesn't reflect that, you're not going to be in business for very long.
Yeah. And really, it's interesting because I see people sometimes go to the extreme of creating this, amazing culture that people want to be part of. But if people aren't making money, it doesn't almost matter, because whether we like it or not, income is an important thing in everyone's life. It may not be the driving force of their happiness, but it's necessary. And people have to make money. Nobody got into real estate or in any career to say that was just to do it for fun and not make any money. Right. Of course, there's financial goals. So I think sometimes we as leaders lose our way, and there has to be some kind of a fine line or a balance between how do we make people be better and formulate better habits in their life and their business, because that's going to give them long-term success. It also increases their confidence and their self-trust. And there's a whole bunch of personal growth that comes with creating those daily habits and work, right?
Right. Well, why don't you, Cari, tell people who are listening, what is a culture? What should the culture look like, in your opinion, if you're trying to recruit people to your company, to your team, to your real estate team, to follow you? What kind of leader do you need to be, and what culture should they be developing?
So it's interesting. This might actually spin a little bit off of our conversation last week. I think if you as a leader will be willing to show up for yourself, first and foremost, people see that. And don't a lot of people, not show up as consistently for themselves and for their business and their life as they should. And it's not because they don't want to, it's because they just haven't been able to maybe master some of those daily habits or the mindset around that. So, I think that it starts with self-leadership. So if you're talking about everybody else showing up and doing the activities, but you're not actually maybe displaying that yourself, that could be a challenge. And sometimes it's all you need to do as a leader is show up at a really high level and people will attract to you. So that is almost as simple as that. But just because you show up like that doesn't necessarily mean everybody's going to follow. So one of the things I think some leaders do is they show up, but then they don't really talk about it. They're not really like super authentic or transparent about their own struggles of showing up, or the good, the bad, the ugly. And I think sometimes we have to be willing to share our journey around that, so people not only are attracted to it, but they can start trying to execute in the same way. They can start trying to lead themselves in the same way. So that's one thing that I think is fundamental. What else would you add to that, Haley?
Yeah, I would encourage, any leader who is looking to improve their culture, like I said earlier, to evaluate what you're currently doing and what you're currently not doing. Because everything that we do as business leaders needs to flow into, are we being productive? Are we actually producing? Are we meeting our KPIs? Are we, are things actually being measured? Are the things that you were doing for your culture within your organization actually leading to agents closing their deals and being more productive, not just personally and professionally, but in for your business as also.
Right.
I would also, I would just say that, you know, do you have a culture where people can come in and they can interrogate reality without feeling like that they're going to be retaliated against? Do
Mm,
you have a culture where people can ask questions, where they can poke holes in the business, where they feel free to come to you and say, hey, this isn't working. Can we
mhm.
try something else? Do people feel comfortable doing that?
Yeah.
If you are a team that focuses a lot on events, what does that event planning look like? And is it inclusive? Is it inclusive to the whole team?
Yeah.
Are you creating silos in your business, or
Mm,
a business where you're actually asking for collaboration? And what does collaboration look like to you?
mhm.
Because again, that is all culture. Culture is not just beer pong and pizza, because that is a type of culture, right? It's not just going to happy hour and everybody talking and venting to each other. That too is culture. Is that the kind of culture that you want to have? Or do you want to have a culture that represents you as the leader? And again, is it actually helping agents to produce greater business and to improve themselves as human beings?
Yeah. I mean, that's the stickiness factor. People, yeah, they love having fun and going out and doing those things. But in reality, they could go do that with a lot of people. That really isn't going to become the stickiness of your business. The stickiness of your
Yeah.
business is if somebody feels like you've impacted their life and their business in a positive way. That's going to create a lot more loyalty. You know, you said something about inclusive. And I think, in all fairness, or not fairness, but being very transparent myself, which, I always am. I mean, there was a time when I was probably, I know I wasn't, I shouldn't say probably, I was not as approachable as a leader because I was a bit intimidating, because I would make just decisions and like go for them and just expect everybody to jump on board and go along with it. And most of the time people did, which is why I kind of honestly, I think, got in the habit of just doing that without even realizing what I was doing. And it took, a lot of just leadership lessons and conversations
Hmm.
with other people for me to become self-aware that what I was doing was just trying to be the leader and get people to, to run along with, so we could achieve all the goals. But there was a better and different way of doing that. So I think that's a really good question you asked earlier, which would be something I would just encourage all leaders who are watching this to ask themselves, which is, am I someone that's very approachable? Do people ask me questions? Do they come in and question the way we're doing business, or give feedback, or say, hey, maybe we could try this next time? Because if you've never been given that feedback or asked a question, then it's probably safe to assume that people aren't comfortable doing it.
Right.
And it might not be, you might not even feel like you are being that way. Like, I didn't feel like I was going to be hard to approach. I had no idea until then. Obviously, I did some, my own self-awareness. So you have to, I think, when you become more transparent and authentic and open, and then you start asking people for their feedback and being more inclusive, being more intentional about that, you'll start seeing people loosen up and start offering. People really, really like to be heard.
Yes.
Even if you don't take every single comment that they said and do something with it, which is nearly impossible, they still really, really like that they have the opportunity to at least share their thoughts, right?
Yeah, that's a very important point, is that every person has the need to feel seen and heard. And are you creating a space, even in your meetings, in your messaging? Are you creating a space where every person on your team has an opportunity to provide feedback? What does that space look like? Are you actively asking for people who are more introverted? Are you asking their opinion? Letting them know that you want to hear what they have to say. Because even if we aren't looking for consensus, what we're looking for is collaboration. And there is a significant difference between collaboration and consensus.
Nice. That's really good. Write that one down, you guys. So tactically, for those of you watching and you're trying to figure out, am I being the best leader? Am I being a collaborative leader? Am I providing a good culture? It all starts with you first, obviously, as a leader. Some of these things might be not natural to you because you're a leader and you're take charge and you're trying to just go make things happen. So I think that some things that you could do, and then I'd love to hear some of your opinion on that too, Haley, is like make part of your team meeting and the actual agenda a time to go around and maybe, ask a specific question about something in the business and get people's opinion. Now, some people may be a bit uncomfortable in a setting like that. If you know that that's the case, you don't have to make it mandatory, but give everybody the chance. Maybe at the end say, look, if you didn't really feel comfortable or you didn't know the answer during our meeting today, send me an email later after you've had time to think about it and process it, because we really want collaboration and I want to take everybody's opinion here and let's like put it all together and figure out if we can do something a little bit differently or better. Because again, your point is it's not consensus. It's like if everybody shares something, you're probably going to come up with an idea that's
Right.
totally new, but it's bringing in everybody's ideas and something that you would not have been able to come up with on your own or any one person on their own. That's the point of group, right?
That's the point of a team model. Is to have that collaboration. And if you're interested in understanding or furthering your education on what team collaboration is, please reach out to me. I'm happy to have that conversation with you. Tactically speaking, though, for agents that are looking to do more and to create a better culture on your team, there's some other fun things that you can do, such as doing open house competitions, doing buyer broker competitions, doing how many cold calls can you do? How many appointment setting competitions? I mean, there's some really fun competitive ways to create a culture within your organization that is A, production based, and B, it creates a culture where everybody's experiencing the same uncomfortableness at the same time, but everybody's rooting for each other. And that right there, that is appealing to what we call at Fierce, smart plus heart. You're affecting people emotionally and you're helping them to raise themselves to the next level, production speaking, or in a production way.
Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. And you said something like, are you approachable? Can people say things that they really feel? Do you become defensive? Are you open-hearted, open-minded? Just being more conscious as a leader is really important. I think that should be an upcoming conversation that we have, Haley, because that has been a big transformation of mine. Many of my reactions were very, very subconscious, or unconscious, which they are like 75, 80% of our life. That's what we are. But when you realize that, then you can kind of drift back into consciousness and make different decisions. And it can change literally the way you lead people, your relationships. It's pretty amazing. Failing forward, that's like maybe something else I would just quickly add here at the end of our talk is, everybody likes to say, we're going to fail forward. That actually means you have to go through failure, which by the way, really sucks. It is not comfortable. It's embarrassing. Your ego doesn't like it. So people like to use that word. And I myself have used that phrase, that word, because it made me feel comfortable saying like, well, I'm okay failing forward. It's almost like a scapegoat. If I fail, then I told everybody I was okay failing forward. So it makes you less afraid, I guess, to go do what you're doing. But you still need to realize if you really embrace that phrase, and if you do in a culture, then you have to actually be okay with the failure part. And other people have to be too. And they have to see you be a leader that embraces that, not maybe creates a feeling of embarrassment or shame or whatever. So how do you do that? Because that's an interesting concept. People say that they're okay to do it, but most people are not.
Yeah, I actually saw something online the other day, and it was an interview that I don't remember who it was, but she was a famous person, and she was talking about failing. And every single day growing up, she would come home, and when they were having dinner at the dinner table, her father would actually want to hear about how she failed that day. And then if she didn't fail, he would be upset with her. The whole point was that he was teaching her that failure is absolutely okay and we need to embrace that to learn. And so what if we took that philosophy and put it in business as leaders, and every morning or every week, every Friday in our morning huddles, we said, how did you fail this week? Amazing. What did you learn from that experience? Congratulations. Like, what are we going to do better next time? Like, what if we created a culture and a conversation around yes, we need to improve. We all do. And even the leader steps forward and says, I failed this week because I did this. And
Mhm.
it's actually something positive. How many people would come forward and be excited to share what they learned this week and how they failed? Why is
That's
that? Why
awesome.
does that need to be negative? It doesn't.
It doesn't. It's just a trait. It's just our learned behavior, right? Like
Mhm.
you either grew up in an environment where like never tell anybody that you're, failing or that you have struggles, which a lot of people grew up in that environment. So it's just like a learned behavior. Now, don't ever show anybody your weakness or what you're not good at or your failures. But man, is that that is
It
such a
is.
limiting mindset. There's no growth that happens
Mhm.
when you don't allow yourself to fail. And then when you're the leader, I think that the best thing you can do is if they're uncomfortable sharing their own failures, is just share yours every
Well,
single
yeah.
week.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that is culture. That
Yeah.
is part of culture. It's how people feel coming
Mhm.
in to work every single day. And when they're working from home, are they still connected to you? Because they're
Mhm.
bringing home a piece of your culture
Yeah.
with and how they
Yeah.
conversation, it doesn't just stop at work. It
Mhm.
comes into our personal life, how we communicate with our spouse, our partner, our children, our friends, our family. That is a reflection of who we surround ourselves with at work also.
Yeah,
So
it's very important. That's so true. I mean, like we tell people, find your tribe. It's important who you surround yourself with. And sometimes people don't realize how important that is. If it literally affects the way you think and your belief
mhm,
system, and you're retraining your brain in ways, because look, you're spending probably as much or more time at work as you are at home. Unfortunately, for most people, that's true, especially, entrepreneurs sometimes of the year. Maybe it's, different other times of the year, but you're working a lot and you're around people a lot. Most people are, if they're working a full-time job. It's very, very, very important that you realize, like, how is that leaking into the way you think and then the way you act. Remember, it all starts with your thinking, and then it moves into actions, and then it moves into results. So we have to really attack the thinking part. So failing forward also will create growth, because there's zero way to grow yourself professionally or personally if you don't allow yourself to fail forward. So that
right.
actually equates to productivity. The friendly competition, the rallying around each other, getting in an uncomfortable situation together, inspiring each other to actually get into action, that creates culture in a positive way, because otherwise those people wouldn't get into the action because they would be too scared to. And then that actually leads to productivity, but it leads to
100%.
self-confidence. It leads to learning. It leads to getting better at these skills and self-trust. So all the things that we've talked about, if it's culture, if you can connect it to something that's going to lead to productivity, that's the place you want to
That's the
be,
point.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
I love it. I love this conversation. We're going to continue to have more conversations every Tuesday. We also are having team building and productivity masterminds, but primarily around our team building masterminds. Haley's going to be joining that with me twice a month as well. And we're going ahead and posting those on our socials. So if you want to join in some of the conversations, today we are having it. It's every Tuesday afternoon. And we're going to talk a little bit more about this whole topic of culture and productivity and how you can create that for yourself and others in your business. So be sure to join us if you want to. It's open to anyone. And I'm super excited for our next conversation. So we'll see you guys back here next Tuesday. Thanks,
Bye,
Haley.
everyone.